Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trekyards. He is Commander Cockings. And today, we're going to be taking a look at the Atlas class, TOS ship from the STO universe. And it's fantastic.
We looked at it before in various little bits, but finally, we can give the full treatment. New renders, new artwork, new angles. Do it the full slew. We'll get to see the details. And orthographically, because that's always been one of those weird ones that, unless, someone nice out there does these renders, authors don't really come from a game because you're not really meant to be able to do that in a game. And that's okay.
I've always liked the Atlas class. It looks beefy. It looks, quite substantial. And I've always found it funny that the Nacelles feel like they're just banded together with, shrink wrap. It's got an interesting look to it, but I really like the design. I think it's a good addition to the TOS fleet. It's done the kind of whole upside down saucer detail where it's kind of like this. The edges don't slant in and down; they're kind of like this. How about you? Do you like this design?
We looked at a few of these, and this one I think has a lot of character, not just with the pretty radical nacelle configuration, but just the way this also feels. It has a certain cohesiveness where some of the other ones we looked at, something feels slightly off. This one, this kind of flowing look, feels, I could buy that, which I like. Okay, perhaps maybe the fact the verbatim bridge dome is just slapped on could do with either a redesign or more detailing around it. Kind of makes more. So that potentially is a little bit like, we're just gonna make the ship bigger. What about the bridge dome? Just get the same. It's like, well,
I don't mind that because it's part of a cohesive fleet and specific design cues are just carried across different ships for easy replacement or whatever, right? So,
but I think this is pretty darn successful. I've always liked the nacelle. It is a ape brain, which is a Doug Drexel reference, logic to me of how can we do more in this era, speed or resilience wise, less just. So in the graphics card world, for a long time, you could buy 2 GPUs and cable connect them. So it was literally just, that's how you made a better PC. It couldn't run one faster, but you could make 2 run slightly slower, but together, which then overall was faster. This feels like, well, how do we make better warp? Let's just put 2 warp together and kind of combine them so it's like 140% as effective, but it's still better. But that for me makes sense, especially if you we need response vehicles, we need so that 140% or whatever might actually be really crucial. So I like the implied universe building by just doing 2 nacelles together, which I do not think would work necessarily with TMP or Voyager or whatever nacelles where they're too curved. This it feels like a nice shell. Don't know if they would work quite as well.
See, I would think the opposite. I would think that the Galaxy class nacelles would stack better per se, whereas these are round and cylindrical, so you don't really see them stacking on each other. But then they banded them with this stuff, which honestly just feels like they shrink wrap them together. Like I said, it's kind of a interesting look, because you can see them sticking out like they're just a regular nacelle in there.
It's got a dumb charm that I like in a good way. Next shot is the back. It reveals it does have a secondary hull and impulse engines that I'm not really sold on. I don't know what else you could do there in that form, but I'm not quite sold on them.
At least they didn't do the STO thing of putting them in the struts, which I think would have worked here, even in the TOS era. Yeah. That area back there almost feels it would be better for a shuttle bay because of that long section leading back to it. Feels like it would be quite a long, landing bay with lots of shuttles parked in the sides, right? But it's just got the standard, TOS Connie secondary hulls shuttle bay, which is fine. Again, keeping the same parts for easy replacement or just ease of manufacturing, whatever.
If you did do that, of course, then the secondary hull would be somewhat redundant. So therefore, if you removed it, it'd be an entirely different craft and certainly flat. I mean, take the secondary hull, it's just a flat craft. So it kind of comes together. I guess potentially my annoyance there is that they are so integrated. I kind of want there to be that slightly extruding, like the Connie itself, because I guess just that hard line of and flat hull. I think that's missing something. I would like 2 protrusions and then maybe torpedo launchers above it or something.
Well, the interesting thing for me is this rear section here on the saucer seems like it would be the engineering section, because you got the feeds coming out to the nacelles right out of it. You got the impulse engines right there. That feels like the engineering section. So it makes me wonder what the rest of the secondary hull is for, because as we know in the Connie, that's largely the engineering section down there. So maybe there's just additional, living space or whatever in the secondary hull, right?
This doesn't necessarily make sense, but I could envision a situation where in that chunk you're referring to, there is a engineering, and then it's directly connected, like 3 or 4 decks down in the secondary hull with a second engineering, each providing power to allow it to do the full level that it's trying to do. And therefore, when they can split, you actually do get 2 engineerings, but they're not placed where they would be normally, but you get sort of 2.
Yeah, maybe there's an upper one for obviously the impulse and maybe the upper nacelles, and then the secondary hull, the power feeds go up into the lower nacelles in case there's damage to the top part. You still have, yeah.
And if you were vibing with this, it's obviously it's all fictional. Obviously, it's pre-vertical warp core, but if you were saying, say this was a slightly more advanced, like treat it a little bit more detail-wise for the Connie baseline, this could be like they did 2 vertical drives at warp core, and then they connected. They thought, why don't we just now make one tube that goes up? That'd be more efficient. And it was kind of like, the impetus for that would be interesting.
The only thing that bothers me about this, I like the nacelle look. I think they look a little weird and beefy at the back, not really designed so well. But the banner on the side as well. You got a lot of surface area there between the 2 nacelles to just continue that banner down, a la the banner on the nacelles of the Enterprise, right? It just seems very truncated and cut off. It doesn't even taper at the back. It's just cut off. It feels like it was just kind of a last minute idea that they just slapped on.
And obviously no registries. We always do that. There's a space for that. They'll be there. Yeah, they sort of the afterthought moment of we'll just stand and got to submit. Okay. Oh, do you finish it? I mean, it was done. It wasn't finished.
No one will notice.
Except Trekkers. The next view though. Now this is where we get. Does this work? Because this is when it's not just a sort of vaguely saucer with some nacelles. This is when the overall oomph comes in, right? Does this work?
You know what I see? I see the NX refit. Same kind of bulky shape, same short neck attached a little further up. This just feels like an NX refit design that they've just TOSified a little bit. I think it does work, but I'm not the biggest fan of the stubbiness of that neck. I get it, and when we can see the orthos from the side and stuff, it'd be interesting to see how that translates. But that's what I see when I look at this, and it seems like there's a Connie secondary hull there, but they've just added things to the side to beef it out. But it's still got the same feel. But it also feels like the NX-01 refit.
It would be interesting if they had, Stowe, if you're listening, hi. It would be interesting if they did an anniversary special where they took every Enterprise, but then made it in every other era, keeping as much of everything in it as possible the same. So a TMP refit version of the D, where now the refit saucer is now stretched, and but try and keep it all logically, not just kit bash, but how would the exact proportions reflect, an NX, a TOS era Enterprise E with absurdly long nacelles, and how they extend that, right? That could be so this, as you say, feels NX3 at least inspired. I mean, I quite like the visual of the fact there's the clear secondary hull and then these big plating things either side with negative space. It implies something to me, but then my brain instantly says, wait, how far does that hull armor go back? Because if it goes just that first window layer, then there's just a giant space. Because if there were no windows on it, which would be weird, of course, or if it was segmented so it was only at the bottom, and then I could see a armor, but
yeah, I don't. Initially, you get the armor vibe, and then you realize, yes, the windows kind of complicate that quite a bit. I don't know. I can see an inner part that tapers a little forward, and then, but then why?
Then why?
I wish there was glowing elements or even photon tubes in that space, so that it would be for some substantial reason, right? So
the old adage, form follows function, quite important.
But generally,
but I like the general. It feels even though it's literally not integrated because it's extruding, I like the integrated sort of... It's doing something else, right? Not just a Connie. One thing is bothering me, and I think it's just a scale issue, is the landing leg style details are now absurdly big. Your thoughts as a TOS lover?
Yeah, I was going to comment on those. The eyebrows, quote unquote, and, considered to be landing legs, makes me think, look at the integration of the neck details. This thing probably doesn't saucer separate. So why are those there, and why do they look like that? It's to maintain the visual TOS fleet look. I get it, but I don't think it's necessary. I do like that they changed the details somewhat to imply something different. But do you need those on this ship? Like, can it saucer separate? It doesn't look like it can.
And it's not even a saucer anymore, is it? It's the primary hull. As in, it's bigger because there's so much chunk, right? I could see there being a separation point after that bulk, and it's just secondary hull. But yeah, it's inorganic for sure.
But
but I do. So those look a bit silly, but at least they're there, I suppose. Although, it would have been nice if this was a bigger ship. If they had like 2 or 3 or 4 around, so more distinct, much smaller, or at least thinner, and around. But we've looked at, a couple of these, and I've not been as fond of the lower planetary sensor dome. The way the layering is, this I think works pretty well. It maintains it's too simple, but not quite, and busy. I think the balance is well struck here. What do you think?
Yeah, it looks a little simple to me, but it feels like a light, like one of the dome lights you see in a lot of places.
I mean, even the refit has a dome light at the top, literally.
Yeah, but this one feels more like it for some reason. Also, there's like no phaser banks and like extruding squares for some reason.
But ships need those.
But phaser banks, yeah, especially ones with 4 nacelles.
But I think it's a pretty cohesive piece.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
'Cause it's not just a kit bash, right? Everything has been tweaked. So the next shot is from the bottom. I'm wrong, but for some reason my brain says Excelsior.
Yeah, I can sort of see that.
I don't know why though. I guess the nacelles, the length of them, maybe proportionately.
Well, first of all, I really like this view. I think the stoutness of the ship really works here. I think that might be it. The stoutness, the shorter neck of the Excelsior, and kind of where the secondary hull sits under the saucer.
Yeah.
I think that might be giving you the vibes. The nacelles here, I like the front. I like the idea of them, but the back really bothers me. It feels very like, hey, we got these little half dome things. Let's just do this. And it's like, you could have done something better there, I think. Just having the half domes would have been perfect on both, but then it would have felt like, they just slapped nacelles on, right?
Or missing something.
Yeah, I just wish the bottom one tapered up, maybe a little bit, instead of just being... I like the nacelles and I don't. It's a weird...
I know, I get that sense from you.
It's a weird thing. The secondary hull shape I really like, though. The more elongated, kind of still Connie look, with like a deeper cutout. It's not such a short cutout like the Connie. I like that. That looks really good.
Well, it gives Excelsior and an X-Refit vibes, as we kind of mentioned earlier. But in this view, the two things strikes out to me: the impulse engines. I just, they look even worse here. For me personally, they just like everything feels so baked, and that feels like what should we do here? Just, even the scaling them doesn't really make sense to me. Maybe I would have had 4. I keep suggesting things. Maybe do 4 or do 3 or just do... Doesn't quite work. I do quite like the end of the nacelles because they're obvious, yet simple, yet silly, yet dumb, yet clever, yet weird. Could have done with something, though, in that grey... Not just grey. Maybe some, like, slight inset grill... panel lines. Like, really subtle... something, because originally my brain said, add some of them. The original Connie had the hole at the back, but have them on the sides to imply detail. But that would look a bit messy. I don't know. They're great, but they're if I was doing a high poly model, this I would modify them a bit. But the big question on everyone's lips, everyone, will she ortho? Top and bottom view. We've never looked at these. These are first time Leave Orthoing.
Really good looking ship, honestly. The secondary hull does sit very much forward, though, on the bottom view. Top view looks great. I do like the angled struts on this one. It's appropriate. Yeah, I'm still, from the top view, I'm still getting NX refit vibes, for sure. Bottom, not so much. But I love the thickness of that secondary hull. And just, like I said, that huge scoop cutout at the bottom looks quite cool.
It's just so faithful, and yet everything's different. You know? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of these ships, especially with some TMP ones, is like, that's a weird choice. That angle's weird. And this is kind of like, okay. Feels proportional. I wonder if this was the first one they did, and then they may not ran out of time, but had less time to iterate on follow-up ones, and therefore didn't work quite as well.
Possibly. Yeah.
Is it too basic from the top? Because there's something in my brain that says it's just everything's a bit changed, but that's just so faithfully TOS, right? Is it?
I think you're really noticing the lack of registry. Like that, I think that would just help.
Yeah.
And also that long section coming back to the impulse engines feels very blank canvasy. Like there's so much you could put there. I mean, you can put too much there, greebly wise or whatever, but just something. And don't get me wrong, I like the simplicity of TOS designs. How it's just white and it's clean and there don't need any greeblies or anything like that. But I don't know, it's something drawing my eye there. It's just like, what about this area?
I love all those. They show you new things. I had not realized the nacelles was so, the attachment points are so at the front, so it gives it an entire different view. But you've got to do that. Just structuralize it'll hit stuff, but it changes the feel so much. And the bottom we haven't seen yet, but that plating I referenced earlier does maintain to the bottom, but that there are also windows there, so they've given it armor or second hull layering and then cut into it and added windows, which would just have been. It's like if this was not a scratch built saucer, but some saucer redone, then there are rooms that they then had to like move left by 5 meters to then go into the armor. Otherwise, the window is now like, this pane is now like this. Okay, I'm out of frame, but you know what I mean? Like it's odd, and I didn't realize it was going to continue that far back. And now in the grander scale, my brain instantly says those red boxes at the bottom don't make sense anymore. Whatever their function was in TOS, it ain't doing them now, because that's just things for the sake of things, because those don't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's one of the things I first noticed when I looked at this image when I was talking about the cutout, the scoop. Like, that looks a little off.
Yeah, this would be a really interesting one to up detail, make hero, and what subtle things that kind of flesh out a bit would be. Like almost having an Excelsior style under secondary hull cargo bay module might work really well on this.
Oh, absolutely. You could add something there for sure. I think that's another thing that makes you think Excelsior, and it's very, very subtle, but the way that the edge of the saucer is, it goes down like this as opposed to cut in like this. And I mean, I'm not sure if I like that or not on TOS. Like it looks cool, but I really prefer the Enterprise because it's what I've seen my entire life. I think something about that subconsciously just kind of, I mean, it's cool seeing it from the top and seeing the window details on that rim, but yeah.
But then the other question is, will it everything else? So the side, front, and back. Now, not quite as elegant, and straight away, optical illusion, thy name is here. That plating, did not realize it was absurd. What the hell is happening?
Yeah.
I think it's lost a couple of points.
Yeah, I mean, the front and back views are not great. The fact you can't see the struts, you can't see the neck, it just feels like it's not finished or they're not connected. It seems really odd. I do like that there's bizarre collectors above and below the sightline of the saucer. That's great. Side view again, I'm getting very much NX refit vibes. I like the way it looks from the side. Even the stacking of the top of the saucer, that step up and then the flat, and then I think that is really good.
I'm getting a little bit of Foley vibes though, with the way that the sauce is a little bit thicker and the way that the back module kind of goes into the neck.
Yeah, you're
just a little
right.
bit, just a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't realize how big the ship was either from this. I don't know if it's necessarily, quote, it makes sense, but having, 5 decks in the saucer rim, which then absolutely breaks everything else scale-wise in terms of, like, what we know. So that Connie the shuttle bay is bigger, has to be.
Yeah, I think the secondary hull looks better from the back than it does from the front.
Doesn't look good either, though.
I don't mind it. I really don't mind it from the back. I kind of like the new reshaping to give more internal volume. That's cool. But from the front, it just feels like it's a Connie secondary hull with like armor plated on it. The negative space is confusing and upsetting to me.
I mean, possibly there are launchers in there, but I don't necessarily buy it.
Yeah.
I don't know. The back of the secondary hull just, I know what it's doing. It's tapering up, so it's just bigger, but it just looks like it's eaten too many McDonald's. You know, it's just bloated. Like the logic is not following through, even though from every other angle that we didn't feel that. So this is where authors are so enlightening, because they reveal all sins.
Even the side, you can't tell that.
Yeah, you really can't. But then you look at the windows, like, holy hell, that's a giant secondary hull. Even though it's basically, because that is. I mean, look at that. What, like 25 decks secondary hull? I mean, this is extended. But I do think that the nacelles hold up really well in all these views. And like I said, I really like the top and bottom visible. That's just nice and pleasing. So next shot is a close up of the nacelles. So there's anything we haven't gleaned yet. No, I like the fact that there's they'd have sort of almost like Discovery Alpha style, 2 distinct facade modules, and then there's a bit of layering. It's not just two nacelles and then hull. They've clearly been dissected down to the workings and then re-shelled. So there's a bit more going on than just literally 2 together. Otherwise, because the facades wouldn't look like that normally. So I points for that.
Yeah, I kind of wish there was like a grilling though in the inner part instead of it being the same as the outer. And that, again, that just adds to the feel that it's just banded together with something, which they probably are. I don't know. I wish there was more of the TOS like grilling inside there. I think that would look good. I do like the angled back struts as well, instead of straight.
Yeah, the view's hiding all the other things. Guys, it's so is optical illusion ship. Next view is a close of the saucer. Again, just to kind of highlight some of the details. It's a big saucer, missing the little white elements, which you could have had more of on this, given it being a much larger ship.
And again, no phaser emplacements, no phaser banks. It's very reminiscent of the TOS Enterprise that doesn't have that stuff. It's kind of all hidden in the little dome at the bottom. That's where everything fires out of. So,
yeah, but now knowing the scale, I'm now less fond of the top dome arrangement, the segmentation, because it's like there's a lot of nothing happening there. Still looks good, just a bit more confusing. And then the back view with the impulse engine, still not good. Points are still. Although now, I didn't see it from the orthos, so maybe I'm wrong, but now in this view it looks like the shuttle bay has been stretched.
yeah, I think so.
Which doesn't look great, but it doesn't look terrible.
And also the addition of the antenna with the little thing on it, which is very 1960s.
Yeah, that's what they did with this entire fleet.
Yeah, it's something about that back impulse module area. That needs to be tweaked and changed somewhat.
Yeah, just do it different. And then last picture is number 5. Is just a nice top view. It's kind of is everything you want and need, but also there's now questions. We've broken the case on this ship. It is not quite what we thought. What do you think? Because it's a nice angle, very faithful. Yeah, now I see the problems. What do you think?
Overall, I really like the ship. There are a few things that kind of bother me with it, but it's one I would happy to be a captain of, honestly. It feels like something special in the fleet. The 4 nacelles kind of give it that sense of power and majesty, right? Yeah, as a designer, I'd make a few tweaks personally, but I can say that about probably every ship. 1 or 2 things I would change. So overall, I think it's a beautiful addition to the TOS fleet, and I'm certainly glad to have it in STO. I think it's an interesting design.
yeah, a better success than they often have. Not to dunk on the other ones, but there's certainly a spark of an idea in this one. But I would like to see it more hero detailed to even just like think about the deck arrangement and see, does it actually make sense this scale? What does that mean? You know, once you have it to be this much larger, then maybe you'll have some more bowling alleys, and maybe you need to have windows in them, so you have giant windows. Things that might A to B to C for this design. But yeah, very good, and I think this would look great in media, books, and whatnot. And you can get it now on Stone.
Comment down below if you have it, if you're going to go get it, if you knew the ship existed, what you think of this ship, what you think of our thoughts on this ship. That's what the comment section is for. Make sure you like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell icon to all so you don't miss any fun content from us, either edited or live.
And if you want to support what we do here every single week for a long time now, and hopefully a long time more, then Patreon. It's monthly. Any amount of months does help. Or join the channel here on YouTube to access two little bonus things. Check the join button, or super chatting during lives, or PayPal, trekyards@hotmail.com, or buy a shirt. Links down below.
Lots of ways to help us out, but just being here and hitting like is a big deal, so do it. So until next time, he is Commander Cockings.
He's got a Foley.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.